You're listening to the Wise Women Podcast, Episode 19. I'm your host, Alisha Wilford, founder of Yoke and Abundance, a creative leadership coaching business. This podcast is designed to inspire by introducing you to creative women living abundantly. I hope you'll savor Jada's words of wisdom as much as I have. This week is our signature monthly event, the Wise Women Panel. It's the last one of the year before we start back up late January 2019. If you're looking for friend-raising, inspiration, and fun, join us at HQ Greensboro on Wednesday, December the 12th to hear from many of the wise women you've already heard from on the podcast, like Maya Deary and Katie Marshall. This is your chance to meet them in person. If you come to this month's panel and bring a friend who's never been to the panel before, you'll receive a pass to get into one of next year's panels free. Space is limited and we want to make sure we have enough wine, LaCroix, and appetizers for everyone. So head over to the website, www.yokeandabundance.com, and reserve your seat today. Now, on to today's guest, Jada Monica Drew. Jada has designed countless diversity and inclusion programs in the public and private sectors for more than a decade. She is the CEO of Social Designs, a social justice consulting firm. Her first book, Revolutionize Now: Creative Leadership and Action for Social Change, is a movement equipping educators, social justice activists, and business leaders with tangible tools for radicalizing systems and evolving self. I hope you'll love this interview with Jada as much as I have, but first, a word from our sponsors. This week's sponsor is Triad Local First, a nonprofit membership organization based in Greensboro, North Carolina, with members throughout the Triad. Triad Local First's members include independent, locally owned retail shops, real estate agents, insurance brokers, marketing and advertising firms, accountants, dentists, restaurants, farmers, breweries, and more. TLF's mission is a commitment to building a strong local economy and a vibrant, unique community. For more information on how to serve local independent businesses this holiday season and throughout the year, visit www.triadlocalfirst.com/buy-local-season. Jada Monica Drew.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm awesome.
I am so honored to have you here this morning. I am hoping that you can tell everybody a little bit about who you are and your work and your background and how you got to where you are right now.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here in your aura and your synergy. I'm picking up all of the good vibes. How did I get here? That's a great question. And I'll start with advice that my father told me a long time ago, which was to always give back, always help people, and always get your lesson, which means, study to be the best that you can possibly be. And so growing up, it was definitely taught to me, reared in me to give back to the community, to give back to those who may not have as much as you have. And I think that my work is built around that. I consider myself to be a catalyst for growth. And even within the company, Social Designs, that's what we do. We catalyze people's growth in the areas of leadership as well as diversity. And so I just love people. I love connecting people. I love making things fun and just finding ways to, how can I say this? Finding ways to pull out what people don't want to pull out of themselves because of fear. And most times it's just, bringing in a different vision or a different visual or a new game or just even a different podcast, Yoke and Abundance. So folks can really think about life differently and think about themselves as also being that person that can also give back, that person that can also catalyze other people's growth.
Yes. And can you talk a little bit about your business, Social Designs?
Yes, Social Designs is a leadership and diversity consulting firm, and we work with clients in various fields, corporate education, nonprofit, and we help individuals and companies look toward long-term solutions in leadership and or diversity. So what does that look like? I always get that question. Well, what does that look like, Jada? It looks like going in and doing a training for a staff, and that training may be a training about a leadership assessment and ways to work together more effectively. The training may be around creating a diversity strategy or talking about one area of diversity. So some clients want to know more about, well, how does racism and race, what does that look like with our organization? How do we need to teach our clients? How do we need to build a marketing package even that speaks to people from different ethnic backgrounds or gender backgrounds? And so because I like to, play with puzzles and put things together, that's why I think Social Designs is really, really amazing at those two things, leadership and diversity, because it's all about putting those pieces of the puzzle together and then moving toward a next step.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
Good.
And, at the panel, you talked about design thinking.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Can you talk to us about what design thinking is and how it comes into play with your clients?
Yeah, so design thinking is a way of teaching and facilitating that grew out of Stanford University. So I didn't make it up, but I actually love to use it. It really helps people go through iterations of empathizing and then to eventually design and create afterwards, and creating a prototype and then testing what you've designed. So a design thinking model can take from 2 hours to 2 months, depending on what you're creating. And so, when you're in science class, you learn about, having a hypothesis, and you learn about testing an experiment. It's the same thing when it comes to people, and people creating different ways of growing companies or developing a new strategy. So we use that sometimes when people really want to understand, well, what do we mean when we say leadership? Or what do we mean when we say inclusion? And so we go through a process sometimes of having people just do a word dump or a brain dump to write as many things as they can down when they think about the word inclusion. And then what does that mean to, let's say global, the word global is in that company's mission. Then we ask them, just word dump, what does it mean when you think of global? And then we work through a process to align people so that everyone in the room understands the different perspectives. And then we move people to connect their perspective, their areas of expertise, to the long-term mission of the organization in a way that's fun, in a way that's very reflective, and in a way that pulls out the strengths of everyone in the room.
I love that.
Thank you.
And because you love games so much, I don't know if you know this, but I do a game on the podcast, and I pull an animal spirit card for everyone. Would you like an animal spirit card?
Let's do it.
Excellent.
Let's do it.
Have you ever had an animal spirit card before?
I have not, and I'm nervous.
Oh, don't be nervous. They're fun.
Okay.
I promise it's fun.
What if I don't like the cards you pick? What happens then? Can we shuffle them up and do it again?
We could. We could. No attachment to the outcome, right?
Okay.
Okay, if you could just put your hands on the deck.
Hands on the deck.
Yep, close your eyes and
Close
take a
my
couple
eyes.
big, deep centering breaths. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and with your left hand, cut your deck into 3 piles. And then flip over anyone you want. The vulture. Okay, I know it seems scary, but I think you're actually really going to like this card. So this is a creature of the air.
Okay.
And the creatures of the air are known to see more than others, but sometimes the speed at which they move can leave them feeling a little ungrounded.
Okay.
Like a lot going on, so to speak. And
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was just an animal of the sky yesterday up in the plane traveling.
And you travel a lot, don't you?
I do. Okay, tell me more. See more than others.
Well, the vulture, what the author of these cards says, she says it's the guardian and purifier, essential for rebalance.
The vulture is perhaps the most misunderstood creature of all. This intriguing bird balances our ecosystem and prevents the spread of dis-ease. It does the dirty work that no one else wants to do and cleans up our messes. The vulture appears when there's a situation that needs to be purified or brought back into balance. Remember, the vulture is greatly undervalued. What you thought was a mistake or tragedy is a blessing in disguise. When in balance, clarifies, reveals wisdom. When out of balance, dramatic, aggressive. To bring into balance, clean your space or sage. How does that land?
Wow. Oh my gosh. Wow. So I definitely clear my space out when I feel like I need balance.
Do you?
And also sage. That's very interesting. And then the piece around doing the dirty work. A lot of people call me when they, are experiencing conflict or tension, even within, friend groups or family groups. I'm that person to, bring some type of harmony within the group. So this is very interesting.
That is interesting.
Vulture.
Yeah. I love this card, and I go cycling a lot with friends and a lot of up in the northern part of this area. Mm-hmm. And often we go by a few houses that have a lot of vultures up on top of the houses or in the trees near them. And I always think about this card, and I'm like, is this a sign that I have a mess I need to clean up? Or
yeah. Wow, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for playing my game.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm not afraid anymore.
Good. Tell me, what's a project that you're working on right now that you're really excited about?
Oh, what's a project? I have to think. There's so many. Okay, so one that I'm spending a lot of time to work on, actually building like downtime and scheduling time in my calendar to not take any meetings or do any work. I'm creating a workbook for professionals that really want to seek more specific practical help in building inclusive practices within their organizational structure. So currently it already exists in a small form on our website where people look through it's called the Equity and Inclusion Guide, but I want to take it a step further and really provide not only written material, but things that people can take away, some of the activities that we use in trainings, building it so it's a train-to-trainer model.
Yes.
So that folks can implement things on the fly or have things to pull out of their toolkit when they're working through issues of wanting to create or needing to create more inclusion within their organizations.
So as you're working through creating and expounding upon this workbook, what's your creative process like?
I don't know if I have a process. I do things very non-linear, right? Okay, yeah. So I'll have an idea and I'll literally think of, I'll play games, right? So I'll do a design thinking process myself. Or I'll listen to, when I know I'm creating something, I'll listen to podcasts straight through for days just to see what might pop up in my mind. Yes. Based on what I know I'm moving toward. And so on the way here, I was listening to a podcast just about how to, get outside of your own comfort zone, which people hear that a lot, but the piece was more about, when you are moving toward a big investment or you're doing something new, don't think small, think big. And they gave examples of how to do that. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's helpful, in the way that I'm developing this new product. So that's one of the things that I do. I also, I clean up. I like to organize. So I'll organize old training materials, or I'll organize, I use lots of Post-its and cards and different types of markers and things like that when I'm doing workshops, when I'm training people, and I'll just organize those things. And then something might pop up from years past, a note that I might have written myself. So my process is so all over the place. Or I might just take a break and today is beautiful outside, so I might just take a walk and clear my mind, no phone, just the old school iPad or iPod with music,
Yes.
So it's so unconventional.
I love that. I think unconventional is often the best way, right?
I guess. It's been working, but
if it works, stick with it.
Yeah, you're right.
What's something you've done recently that scared you and took a lot of courage, but you're really glad you did?
And I thought you would ask me something like this, and I was trying to think of an example that's not old, because you said recently, right? So I just took a lot of courage, but I did it. I don't know, Alisha.
Share what comes to mind then, even if it's not like super recent.
Well, I feel like the last time we talked, the panel actually, I talked a lot about Bloom, which was huge for social designs. And so to me, I'm still on a Bloom high and gearing up for next year. And so that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, so tell everyone about what Bloom is.
Bloom Inclusion is a seminar where people who have invested in diversity and inclusion are ready to take the next step. So we have professionals in the nonprofit arena, corporate, government, and education, K through 12, as well as higher ed, to come together to learn more about a particular area of inclusion. So this past year in 2018, we had areas including retention and recruitment of employees. We talked about ways in which to create more specific evaluation processes for organizations that are going through that mode of inclusion. So it's very, very specific and also creative. Once again, catalyst for growth, social designs. We want to bring in so much creativity. And so one of the things that we do is offer a design thinking model, which, after going through the process this year, we learned a lot. After the first time through our evaluations, we learned that people want more time. They want more time with experts in the room. They want less facilitated time. Some people love the facilitated time and creating and ideating with those who are in their groups. And so we're in the process right now of building an even better Bloom year 2 for October 3rd, 2019. And, it was really scary to offer a full-blown seminar from, just from the perspective of, everyone wants something very specific, and we cater all of our trainings and consulting projects very, very specifically to every single client. And so with Bloom, it was a mix between the two. We're catering, but we're also offering something to people who are from different arenas. And so you have to meet people where they are while also, balancing the fact that some people may come in with more language and more experience in inclusion. And so that's a balance that we've talked about as facilitators. And it was also, just fun to experiment in that way. And it's nothing like that exists in this region in North Carolina. And so offering an opportunity for people to come together from across the state and really, learn together, support each other when it comes to inclusion. And when I say inclusion, it's not just about meeting the number. It's not about having a certain amount of a certain type of people in your organization. It's about building the capacity so that everyone can thrive.
Yes.
Everyone can thrive. And so having people who are passionate about that alone in the same room for half a day, it was just amazing. And so we're excited for next year. I'm scared, also I'm afraid that, how can we make it so that we iterate the changes that, we talked about from the evaluations, but then also keep things standard, because as we all know, in the business world, you can't change things too much after the first time. You have to really move and ebb in a way that that makes sense, that's careful, but it's also moving toward innovation.
Like slowly and deliberately.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just like that.
I love it. What brought you to the work that you're doing right now? Like how did you become an entrepreneur? How did you land on the work that you're doing now?
So I became an entrepreneur because I grew up around entrepreneurs. I come from a family of business owners, from building houses to running trucking companies to banking, all kinds of things. And so I come from that background, like seeing it as a child and always wanting to be an entrepreneur. There are different things that I do outside of inclusion that's also in the business realm. Like I have a greeting card company that I don't talk a lot about.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's called Lover's Lane. I also worked directly with a colleague of mine, and we have a nonprofit where we take students to Barbados every year in the summertime. So I've always been a kid with the entrepreneur spirit. I remember those magazines, they have all the superstars in them. I would take those and scan them when I was in high school. No, maybe even middle school. And I would scan them, print them out, and take them to school. And I had a sheet with all of the prices for them, and I would sell it. And so my dad would tell me, you have to take your earnings and you have to buy your own ink. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do that, so I stopped. I wanted all the profit. So I've always just been an entrepreneur and like creative.
Yes.
And I'm like a geeky, creative type of person. Like I find creativity in building curriculums and putting together workshops. So
same. Me too.
So coming to this line of work, just one of the things I always wanted to do was travel and to teach. And my way of teaching is so connected to people. The context, of course, the whatever the topic is, wanting to make sure I know as much as possible, but teaching in a way that brings people to the information in a way that they have agency in it, in the way they feel good about it, and they have practice. And so what brought me to that was just literally always just wanting to teach and to help people to realize whatever it was that they wanted to get better at. I always found ways of encouraging and coaching. So much of the work that I do and the way that the pillars of the company are set up is really based in that connection, coaching. I have a psychology background, so I've studied, how to connect with people from various backgrounds, as well as just from different levels of how people learn.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I love that. I'm wondering, you've written 2 books.
Yes.
And your last book was More Than Enough. Mm-hmm. And you so wonderfully gave me a copy at the panel, and I appreciate it so much. I'm really enjoying reading it.
Awesome.
What made you want to write that book?
I feel like that book came to me versus me saying, I want to write a book about being more than enough. I was asked to do a keynote at a local college, and they wanted me to talk about intersectionality. And what kept coming up in doing my research was, the concept of being more than enough as a woman. But we always feel like we're not enough. We're not, we don't have enough mascara on, or we're not, as businesswomen, we're not making the investments that we're going after aren't big enough, or we're not spending enough time with family. And I found myself saying that often in the midst of writing this keynote speech. And so they really wanted me to empower, motivate, and then also teach about like the history of women and the history of intersectionality. So it was a lot, right? And during that process, the theme More Than Enough just kept coming to me. And the session was amazing. It was very interactive. And then I was asked to do another keynote locally at a women's equality breakfast. And some of the things that they wanted me to talk about were very similar. How to connect equity within a community perspective to leadership, inspiration, and motivation for women. And the theme came back. And that summer, so it was between the spring and the fall, that summer, it would come to me and I would start writing things. I would take notes here, take notes there. I had in my mind that maybe I can turn this into, a book one day. And then I just kept writing a little bit at a time. And then after that speech at the women's equality breakfast, part of it, I would have the women repeat after me, I am more than enough. And then afterwards, the mayor of the city and one of the councilwomen, they stood up and they asked the crowd to repeat after them, I am more than enough. And I would just look around in the crowd and I would see so much confidence and energy and women owning that phrase, I am more than enough. And then that just catapulted me to finish writing it in like 2 months. And wow. I finished it, and it's been not a mantra, but more of a movement. So I've been from the East Coast to the West Coast and the Caribbean and, doing small events or book signings. And it's wrapped around not just showing up and signing a book. It's more, let's talk about what's here and let's talk about how to create a lifestyle. Whereas you may say that you're not more than enough. You may not think that you're enough in some realm, but you've practiced enough. You've went through the workbook of the book. You've practiced so that any moment, at a split second, when you say you're not enough, you just know, you know what, I am more than enough, right?
Yes.
And there's a little jingle in one of the videos that I did. It goes, I am more than enough. I am more than enough. And I even sing it to myself now. And a few people, when they have seen it, they'll come up to me they'll say, I am more than enough. So it's cool.
That's so fun.
It's fun and it's real. So I had to really face a lot of things that I would find myself running away from, and I actually wrote it in the book. And I'm I would say a private person. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the things that I wrote in the book, I don't typically, talk about in an open forum. Right. So I challenge myself to share why I deeply, deeply feel that I'm not enough in so many realms, from my talent to the way that I look or the way that I feel, or how I don't challenge myself enough even in my own BS. And right. So finding the root of where that even comes from and writing about it a little bit was helpful for me. It was a reflection moment. It was a purging in a sense. What does the vulture do? Clean out. Yes, I was cleaning out and I was balancing myself.
That's great.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
The thing that strikes me about your book and the theme and the title of I Am More Than Enough is that often I feel like with the coaching that I do and then the volume of women that I've coached this past year, mm-hmm. which it's been quite a bit, it seems like the overarching theme, whether people will articulate it with these words or not, mm-hmm. is the theme of feeling like I am not enough.
Yeah.
And I really think it's powerful in the more tools that we can have in our toolbox, mm-hmm. to reinforce that we are more than enough. It's really important. So I would encourage everyone to read your book. I'll put a link to it in the notes section.
Thank
but
you.
I really think that it's something that we as women need to pay more attention to.
Thank you. I even had a male colleague of mine. He showed me his book with notes written in it. He was like, this isn't just for women. Like this was helpful for me. And talking about some of the things that we're fearful of and having, a conversation piece. That's all the book is. It's a conversation
yes.
piece. It's a way to learn more, but to then pay it forward and talk to someone else about it. So I'm happy that you found usage in the message and that it's working.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Along those lines, maybe, if you could go back and sit down your college or your high school self and give some nugget of advice mm-hmm. to younger Jada, mm-hmm. what would you tell her?
I would tell younger Jada to take more risk and to do things that felt uncomfortable more often with people that I wouldn't expect to, right? And I say that because, when you're in college specifically, or when you're a young adult, when you're a young person, just developmentally, you take more risk than you do when you're older because you've built up more defensive mechanisms. And so I think that I missed out on the opportunity to get to know more people even better, to experience different adventures around this state or this city, just because I might have been tired, or I didn't want to do anything different, or I didn't want to do anything by myself. And so challenging yourself to do things by yourself, I think I would also add yes. to that. I mean, there were tons of things that I was able to experience and things that grew me as a person. But I would say just do it all. Do everything that you can, because you never know
right.
what opportunity may come. You never, ever, ever know. So even now, as a 33-year-old, I try to do that even more, because, if I wouldn't have sat down and met with a connected colleague that we have, out of the blue. If I would have been too busy, which I was at the time, really, really busy, like, I think I want to meet with this person, then I would have never met you,
Right.
So just really, you never know what can happen. And so definitely taking care of yourselves and balancing your time. You can't do everything, but that one time where you are asked to do something different or meet someone new, do it.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Is there a piece of advice or motto that you live by aside from "I am more than enough"?
There is. I have a tattoo that says "Always Becoming," and there's a turtle, a sea turtle, above it. I actually got it when I was in Salvador de Bahia, Brazil. If you see in the middle, you have the Brazilian colors of the flag. And I got the tattoo to remind me that no matter who I am, no matter where I am, no matter how old I am, I'm always becoming. I have an option to do something different.
Right.
I have an option to stop what I'm doing. I have an option to continue what I'm doing. I have an option to try something different, and no one can put me in a box. And I heard this phrase from Ruby D. Davis, who was she was an activist and an actress, beautiful woman, and she made a speech and she said that she's always becoming. And this is a woman at the time, she was probably in her mid 80s when she said that. And it was during a time in my 20s where I felt like I needed to just fit certain molds and the trajectory that I was in via career. And that moment, I knew, what? I can do whatever I want to do.
Yes.
I'm always becoming. And if I want to change my mind, years later or next month, then I can do it.
Then
I
will
can
be
do
all
it.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm wondering, is there anything on your bucket list right now that you are working towards?
Yes.
What's that?
Working towards, that's subjective, but I'll say two things. One, I do want to skydive, probably next year in the summer. I don't know where, maybe like Wilmington or something, but I want to skydive. And then two, I want to be fluent in Spanish as well as French. So in the next 3 years, that's the timeline I'm giving myself. I'm going to be fluent or somewhat conversational in Spanish and French.
What are you doing right now to take steps to become fluent in
now,
Spanish and French?
I prefaced it by saying, working towards the
Yes,
subjective.
I know.
So it's on my vision board, it's in my notebook, and specifically there's an app called Duolingo.
Yes.
So I'm going to start Duolingo in December when I have downtime, and I'm going to put Post-its around my house, just with different vocabulary words based on what the Post-its are on.
Yes.
And there are a lot of like coffee time, tea time, evening opportunities at different libraries and coffee shops here in Greensboro. So I'm going to find those and schedule time to actually have conversations with people, native speakers of those languages.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do.
I love it. If you want to practice any French with anyone, let me know, because I am working also towards becoming conversational in French.
How about that? Yes.
So
we can do it.
Yeah, I'm not good at it yet, right? Carol Dweck, growth mindset.
Growth mindset.
Just not yet.
Not yet.
but I will.
Working towards it.
Yes.
Yes.
A friend of mine, for my birthday, she knows how much I love French and Le Petit Prince, The Little Prince, by Antoine Saint-Exupéry. And she sent me The Little Prince en français. So, and it's got lots of definitions and a glossary of terms in it. So I'm like, this will be a good
That's awesome.
book.
That's cool.
I know that you are a yogi and you really enjoy yoga. Can you tell the audience what your favorite yoga pose is?
Yes, tree pose.
What is it that you love about tree pose?
Oh, back to this vulture thing. Oh my gosh, it's coming back. Tree pose is a very centering pose. It helps me to realign, and it's not just a one pose of realignment. You have to switch to the other, so it helps with balance. And for me, I literally, as soon as I step into it, like my brain switches over to be more present in the moment, and partly it's because you don't want to fall down, right?
Right.
But that's my favorite. That's my favorite, and just from a physical perspective, it helps with realigning my back as well as my knees, because I've had issues with both. So that's definitely one of my favorite poses. It's one of the cuter ones too, when you're taking pictures, cute. Especially when you're on the coast of some beach or mountains in the background.
I mean, I was struck in your book. You pretty much start out with yoga.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so fascinating that you used yoga to not only come into alignment in your body, but also in your mind and where you were going. And I thought that was really beautiful.
So I'll tell you a story about that. Back to do things outside of the box, right? So a friend invited me to go on the, I can't remember the name of the beach exactly, but it was near Wilmington for just a getaway. And when I tell you I was super busy, I had like one of the biggest contracts to do a training that week after, and then the week before I was traveling for like a week. And at first I said no, but then I really thought about it. I was like, I need to do it. And it was probably about a couple months after, or maybe a month after that speech I was telling you about with I Am More Than Enough. And I had been just struggling writing. Like, I was in the toughest funk of writing I had ever been in my life. It was horrible. And I remember getting up really, really early that morning, going to the beach. I took my phone. I didn't even take my notebook. I just took my phone, no headphones, and I started doing yoga, just allowing the earth to move me. And I sat there for about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours after doing a few yoga poses. And I wrote like the first 2 chapters of the book. It was wild. Like, mind you, I've been thinking about it, outlining it, but it came to me like clockwork. And yeah, it was just amazing. And so after that, it just flowed. So just getting outside of yourself and moving out of the mundane is so important. It's taught me a lot. Like I said, even if it's looking outside or walking outside or meeting a friend you haven't met with, over a glass of wine at a different bar or a different little restaurant, something to just take your mind outside of what it's always doing. It's
getting out of the normal
important.
routine.
Yeah. Sorry for the impromptu story.
I love the impromptu story. That's great.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Anything? Yes, I would like to share that Alisha is amazing. Let me just say this. So at the Wise, if you haven't been, can I do a promo?
Yes.
If you haven't been to a Wise Woman Wednesday, so Wise Women Wednesday, please go. It is not just about the panel. So I was on the panel, but I didn't expect to not even want to sit on the panel because it was so good beforehand. I was like, oh, it's time for us to talk, because there's so many cool activities that you do beforehand. And I love the way that you are very intentional with connecting people in a way that elicits so much energy and spunk. And people really do, I was forced to think about things that I had never thought about based on the prompts that you gave us. And it wasn't like a training, presentational, networking, uptight thing, I don't even know if we were asked to bring business cards, which I'm glad we didn't, because I connected with so many people on deep levels in a quick, in a small amount of time.
I'm so excited to hear that.
So it was
Thank
great,
you.
and I can't wait to go to the next one. Every time you have them doing something, but hopefully I'll be able to. We should look at each other's calendars.
We should
to make sure that I can come to it next year. I'm excited. So I hope you're going to do it again next year, and all the listeners, please do go. It's amazing.
Well, thank you for that. I love putting those on, and my goal with that is that everyone leaves with a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it will be a business connection, but really more important, we need deep connection more than we need anything else.
Yeah, even if it's a social media friend. I know this might sound like kind of corny, but a couple people that I've met, because we just haven't had time to connect in person, we send each other DMs or ask questions about this post. Oh, where's this location? Oh, I want to go there. So it's tons of ways that I've continue conversations.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
And it's awesome.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for hosting.
Well, tell me, how do you live a life of abundance?
I live a life of abundance by taking time to reflect on the things that make me thrive. So throughout the year, and I think I've shared this with you before, I've started to do like retreats every quarter. And during those retreats, I'll ask myself, what has been accomplished? What do I appreciate about what's happening in my life? And what do I need to change? What makes me thrive? Because if I'm not doing those things that make me thrive, then I'm not living an abundant life. And so throughout life, there are things that you'll have to do in order to get to the next level. There's sacrifices that you'll have to make, but your life shouldn't be a lifetime of sacrifices. To me, that's unwarranted, and if it's not necessary, so really taking time to reflect and doing things that help that reflection has been my way of moving closer to 100% full-time abundance.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I hope you were inspired by Jada's words of wisdom. If you've enjoyed this podcast, head over to iTunes, give us a review, and then remember, sharing is caring. So please share this podcast with a friend that could use a dose of inspiration and wisdom. When you share this podcast, it makes it possible for us to keep bringing wise words your way. Check out our website, yokeandabundance.com, for more words of wisdom, creativity tips, and information about my group and individual coaching programs. While you're there, be sure to sign up for our mailing list and don't forget to register for this week's Wise Women panel. A huge thank you to our sponsor, Triad Local First, and my wonderful editor and producer, Ira Sterling at Julia Sound Recordings. Remember, every one of us has wisdom within. Keep sharing your words of wisdom because you never know who you'll inspire.